Hello to everyone who is and isn't here today. I'm welcome. What was it? Hello to everyone who is and isn't here. Is it isn't here? Is that what I say usually? Well, hello to everyone who is and isn't here. Welcome back to the stream where I play non-violent games that reward the player for intellectual and or emotional engagement rather than for combat or any other kind of violent gameplay loops. You know what I'm gonna do? Because it's International Asexuality Day, I am just gonna put my little ace flag in the background. Happy International Asexuality Day. So yeah, here we are. So hello to everyone who isn't in here. Yeah, I feel like I don't say it that way usually, but welcome back to the stream where we play non-violent games that reward the player for intellectual and or Oh, I know what I usually say. I usually say, like, hello everyone, welcome back to the stream where we play non-violent games that reward the player for intellectual and or emotional engagement rather than for combat or other kind of violent gameplay loops. And it's at the end where I say thank you to everyone who wasn't here. My bad. Sorry, everyone. Putting my glasses on. And I do think we're gonna have to deal with some more French accent today, which I apologize in advance. Sincerely. Just really sincerely. I really apologize. Hold on a second. I really have to clean my glasses. They're, you see, pretty dirty. And I seem to have, okay, that's not great. Well, that's a whole thing. Alright, I will deal with that after the stream. And I guess I'll have to just deal with some little bit dirty glasses today. Hey! Shannon! Thrifty! Whatever you want to be called! Whatever it is! Hello! Sorry, I don't know why I had that, like, anyways. Hello. Wonderful to see ya. Sort of. It's great to see ya. And happy International Asexuality Day. I don't know why I still struggle between, like, do I call you Shannon or do I call you Thrifty? Because you have said that you're okay with both. So, like, for me to be like, which one do I call you just doesn't make any sense. Anyways, hi. Thank you for being here. 24th of October, 11:53 a.m., the Old Bailey. Happy Ace Day. Yeah. Sorry, it's black against black on what I'm seeing, so, luckily the thing on the screen is not the same. So, you know what I could do? I could just enlarge this a little bit. There we go. Yeah, happy Ace Day. Also, that's technically a spade. Does it make it the ace of spades automatically? Like, I'm overthinking this. Happy Ace Day. 24th of October, 11:53 a.m. The Old Bailey, Defendant's Antechamber. Ah! Knight Harris himself. Oh, have you been watching from the gallery, Mr. Sholmes? I've been on the edge of my seat the entire time. Courtroom trials are fascinating affairs, as a spectator, at least. I'm glad you've been enjoying yourself. Thriftiony. Yeah. Oh boy. It does look like we're on... But it's pronounced Tiffany. The Thriftiony, but it's pronounced Tiffany. So Tiffany. I could see that. I could see how... Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, I could see that. I won't do it, but I could see it. We also seem to be on a significant delay from each other. So that's why there's a little bit of a... But yeah. Anyways, at some point, I'm sure I will settle on one. It's not today, apparently. I have to ask. What on earth is going on? It makes no sense. What's this professor business all about? He doesn't look like any professor I've ever met before. Who even is he? Ah, of course. You were in Germany already 10 years ago. Yes, the professor. When I discovered he was the one who had been abducted, a sense of foreboding stirred within me. Stream just cut out for me and seems to be less laggy now. Oh, that's nice. I'm glad to hear that. But who knew the monster would come knocking at your door? My heartfelt sympathies. As it turns out, Lord Van Zieks is even more intimately tied to this case than any of us realize, isn't he? Yes, how true. His great friend from university in the dock. And now a waxwork of the killer who took his esteemed brother's life makes an appearance, too. I imagine even the shrewd Mr. Reaper failed to foresee that kick in the teeth. An extraordinary move on your part, my dear fellow, to throw that in front of the man. You make it sound deliberate. I can't help feeling that this professor case is really very puzzling. Oh yes? In what way? In what particular manner? Well, there's Mr. Drebber, Dr. Scythe, and Lord Van Zieks. It seems that everybody in the trial has a link to the case somehow. Yes. In fact, I alone am not a member of the set. Though that leaves me as an empty set, all alone with no intersection to any other. Excuse me, who's this? Excuse me. The Dr. Scythe. Now, what voice did I give her? I seem to remember it was like kind of a femme fatale type thing, but let's see. Size. Okay, so, okay. Excuse me. Dr. Scythe! Ah, Dr. Courtney Scythe. Nay, Stevens. Nay, Stevens. Good day to you. Hello, Sholmes. That was very shrewd of you. What in particular, pray? You requested that 10-year-old autopsy report from Gregson, didn't you? Why would you assume such a thing? Because Gregson told me. To think, it's been 10 years. 10 years in the laboratory wielding my scalpel. I smell of nothing but corpses and disinfectant. A policeman on the jury had a lot to say about you as it happens, Dr. Scythe. And I've accused you of being complicit in what happened. I'm hoping that you'll take the stand and tell the truth about what really happened. It certainly won't be possible. Lord Van Zieks won't be summoning me as a witness. Lord Strongheart has forbidden it. Lord Strongheart? The Pandora's box you were warned about is the Professor case. But please don't make the mistake of thinking you'll get any information about it out of me. But attempting to hide from the truth... Oh, whoops. But attempting to hide from the truth, that's cowardice. I've always fought crime in the way that I see fit. I have no regrets. None at all. And that's all I came here to say. So, good day to you. She mentioned it too. This Pandora's box. Whatever does it all mean? There's really no cause for concern. I assure you, when the trial resumes, the meaning will become all too apparent, whether you would like it to or not. Huh? Now then, I believe it's almost time. I must make my way back to the public gallery. The edge of my seat awaits. I think maybe you're enjoying yourself a little too much. Ah yes, one word of warning before I go. If, in the course of the trial this afternoon, you perceive even a shadow of doubt about the truth, don't let it out of your sight. Pursue it like a dog with a bone. To the bitter end, you understand. Do not falter, whatever may come to pass. Alright, I understand. Thank you. Good. I shall make myself scarce then. I purchased a bar of caramel earlier, so I shall be gnawing on that as you gnaw away the truth. What did that warning from Mr. Sholmes really mean, I wonder? Especially the bit about whatever may come to pass. It's time for the final chapter, then. I'm determined to find the truth, no matter what. Oh, Thrifty, I actually, bought all of the, Professor Layton games for my 3DS, before the eShop shut down. I bought the ones that were on there since they were much cheaper there than secondhand. And also ordered like the original trilogy ones from the DS. So, you know, I probably have to play them on an emulator for stream, but I just like, I don't know, I wanted them legally, before I used an emulator, I guess. But also because that way I can play them on my own if I want to. I'm still sort of debating whether or not to do them on stream. I probably will, but I'm just sort of thinking about it, you know. But I haven't committed to it completely yet. But I probably will. But yeah, it just felt like, oh, I have them legally, so now I feel slightly more justified in using an emulator. You know, it's not like I was, you know, if I used an emulator without that, like, would it have been the worst thing in the world? Probably not. It's good to have it anyway, I guess, you know? But yeah, so that'll probably come next. If this really is, like, the final part of this game, so. I do wish they were on the Switch though, you know. Ha, the classic. I'll buy this so I own it legally and then use illegal means to play it. I mean, it's better than not doing that, right? I mean, what other option do I have if I want to play it on stream? I don't think I can hook up my 3DS to, like, my TV. I don't think so, you know. I'm just saying, like, there's not much I could do other than that. So. Also, is this, like, no, okay, so, there we go, a little bit better. In the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I hereby reconvene the proceedings of this court. Counsels for the defense and prosecution, are you ready and able to continue? The prosecution is ready, my lord. Yes, my lord. The defense is also ready. As the court is aware, the case under our scrutiny began with a damaging incident at the Great Exhibition. It's all gray areas anyway. I think technically it would be fully legal to create your own from the your own ROM for the cartridge, but no one does that. Yeah. I have no idea how to do that, and that would be like a huge... Yeah. Alright, yeah. So, yeah, I guess I'll just do it as... I'll do it. As the court is aware, the case under scrutiny began with a damaging incident at the Great Exhibition. Yet we now find ourselves embroiled in the details of a convicted felon who was sent to the gallows a decade ago. This trial has certainly defied all expectation. There might be a capture card for 3DS, but I think everyone just goes the emulator route. That's what I did too. I would like to have a capture card for the 3DS. I feel like that would be like, especially because like it feels weird to play games that use a stylus without the stylus. Like, it genuinely feels weird. I would rather be able to do that if I could. But then, I mean, there's a whole host of things to deal with, you know, using like a handheld, right? There's just a whole bunch of things to deal with that. So, you know, we'll see. You know, I will evaluate it after we finish this. And figure out what I'm doing exactly next. As seems to be the fate of all trials in which this Nipponese is involved, my lord. So then, let us begin our explanation of the defense's assertion that the Waxwork was cardinally involved in this matter. Lord Vedzix, my lord, are we still awaiting the arrival of Madame Tuspels? Not at all. She is in the antechamber as we speak and ready to be summoned. Very well. Bring in the witness. At once, my lord. Bailiff, show Madame Tuspels to the stand. Things are about to become a lot more intense. If Trevor is responsible, as I'm sure he is, it means he must have had an accomplice in Dr. Scythe. And what connects the pair of them is their waxwork. If you've got about $25 kicking around, you could get an entry-level drawing tablet so you could still stylus it. True. It's an interesting idea. It's an interesting idea. I'll think on that. I mean, probably a lot cheaper than getting another capture card. We'll see. But that's certainly an idea to consider. Yes, the model of the professor. That's the key to the link between these otherwise unrelated individuals. It's a tenuous link, admittedly, but at present, it's all we have to go on. State your name and occupation for the court, please. My name is Madame Esmeralda Taspels. I am a waxwork artisan. I am a waxwork artisan. Oh god, French accent! French accent, I'm so bad at this! I'm so bad at the French accent. I've really been trying to improve it, and I'm still awful. I'm so sorry. My name is Madame Esmeralda Taspels. I am a waxwork artisan, and the proprietress of the Madame Taspels Museum of Waxwork. You will have to pardon me for working as I testify. My new exhibit must open very soon. Oh, so he finally gets a statue, does he? Now there are 2 of them in the world. Oh my! What expression is she carving onto that face? A number of days ago, a particular waxwork model was stolen from your museum. Can you confirm this? Oui, that is true. At first, we believed it had been kidnapped. A waxwork model? Kidnapped? Yes, my lord. There was a demand for ransom money left behind by the culprit. However, according to what I have just been told outside the courtroom, that was not the true reason. I understand it was utilized as a substitute for the body of a murder victim. At present, that is no more than conjecture proposed by the defense. This is the victim of the case in question, Mr. Odie Asman. I'm never very good at figuring out what the puns are for the names. Mr. Odiasman. There's, there's like the obvious ones like Tuspels. She looks like a witch, but I just have never been very good at it, But of course, I know him well. He is part of my odious personages exhibit. I detest to say what it is evident, but Mr. Asman does not resemble the professor at all. Yes, but perhaps their faces are very similar. Are you suggesting that we should see which is now the demasked visage of the professor? I have here the key, but it is strictly forbidden to open the lock. This is absurd. Pardon? I don't know what face you've carved onto your fancy figure beneath that mask, but clearly it won't be that of the actual killer. Indeed. The man's identity was never made public, after all. The trial took place in a closed court. The proceedings were strictly confidential. The condemned man was summarily executed. His identity remained a closely guarded national secret. There is no possible way that a repository of tawdry exhibits could get its hand on that information. Quel dommage. It would seem you are unaware of the Taspels principles. What principles? The family Taspels, as always prided itself on sculpting its models à la perfection. Every detail, including the visage, is fashioned with complete fidelity. Et voilà, our principles. There is a well-known legend about the Taspels waxwork from the time of the French Revolution. A member of the Taspels family He is said to have made a waxwork of the queen who was executed. Oui, that is true. It was a century ago now. I believe the queen's face was carved in the minutes following her death, actually at the guillotine site. You are correct. The model is on display still today in the House of Horrors. We Tuspels will stop at nothing to obtain a faithful replica of our subjects. Dear me! A somewhat disturbing tenacity of purpose. It is the only way to obtain a truly lifelike representation of the subject. And it has been my family's secret for generations. Do you mean to say that beneath that mask, the true visage of the killer is there? This is ludicrous. It's out of the question. The professor spread terror throughout Great Britain. As a result, the Madame Tuspel's special exhibit remained extremely popular even today. The killer emerging from his own grave. It is a sight to behold. You should come. I think, madame, it would be beneficial to hear your formal testimony on this matter. You will explain every detail of this macabre model and your personal involvement in its creation. With pleasure. Having a hard time giving her, like, a unique voice that's not mine and also a French accent. Like, it's hard to make her sound like a woman and give a French accent because all my focus is on doing a halfway passable French accent. The Professor Waxwork. The special exhibit in the House of Horrors is based on a rumor that shocked society in London. An impression of the visage was taken directly from the corpse in accordance with Tuspel's family principles. I enlisted the aid of the gravedigger and created a mold from the head in the cemetery just before the interment. I hid myself until he gave me the signal. I was there for a very long time that night. As dawn approached, I was very worried that I would be discovered. The gravedigger? The man sanctioned this? Oui. I will do all that is necessary to achieve the true resemblance my family is celebrated for. Nobody else knew. Only the gravedigger. What harm did it do, eh? So you truly saw it. The face of that monster. Naturally, I was aware at the time that his identity was a secret. But Tuspels would not be Tuspels if we did not insist on absolute fidelity to our sculptures. I don't believe this. I myself have seen the special exhibit at your museum, madame. A truly blood-curdling scene in which the murderer is emerging from his own grave. The scene it depicts was the subject of many rumors in London 10 years ago. I have here a newspaper from the time. The special exhibit was based upon the picture in this article. It was the most detailed account of what happened, as reported by the eyewitness who saw it. 10-year-old article has been entered into the court record. A newspaper article recounting the tale of an eyewitness to the alleged resurrection of the professor from his grave on the night of his execution. Man rises from the grave. It's too absurd for words. The public enjoy absurdity, monsieur. That is why I have reproduced the scene as carefully as possible in my museum. And it's a waxwork from that exhibit that was stolen some days before the incident at the Great Exhibition, wasn't it? That is correct. The professor you see before you here. Most puzzling. I'm trying to at least, like, make my voice a little bit softer when voicing her. It's not much, but hopefully it's something, and I'm not doing it consistently, but hopefully it's something. I'm still very not happy with the French accent I'm doing, but I have to do it because she's French. Like, there's nothing else I can do. I have to give her a French accent, or at least try to. Counsel for the defense, proceed with the cross-examination. Mr. Waxwork links Drebber to Dr. Scythe, and there has to be some reason for that, which hasn't yet come to light. But I'll find it. I'll get to the bottom of what really happened. I'll prove that Dr. Scythe and Drebber were in on this crime together. The Professor Waxwork.
Hold it!
And that rumor would be a 10-year-old tale now, but one that no Londoner would ever forget.
Alright, I know just what you're talking about, I think.
Of course, it couldn't be anything else. Are these right? Hold on.
Alright, I know just what you're talking about, I think.
You could make up headcanon that one of her parents is a native English speaker. I don't know. Look, I'm just trying my best, okay?
To have a man's fate.
Of course, it couldn't be anything else. But where would be the fun in that?
Science experiment.
Yes, that story will never disappear. The tale of the condemned killer rising from the dead. That is the central attraction of my House of Horrors. The rumor was whispered all over the city, and it was like this. Look, I just have to apologize for my absolutely atrocious French accent. It's awful. It's awful. I know it's awful, but I'm doing my best. It was in Logate Cemetery, behind the prison, in the dead of night after the execution of the killer. The interred professor slid back the stone slab covering his tomb and emerged from his grave. A young man witnessed this, felt a scream welling up inside him. But an instant later, he heard a ear-splitting gunshot from over his shoulder. The bullet struck the emerging corpse, and he fell motionless once more. The scream finally found its way from the mouth of the young witness, who turned and ran for his life. The corpse climbed out of his own grave, and then somebody shot him. Who was it? Nobody knows, even today. But remember, it was just a rumor. Perhaps nothing more than a ghost story. The good people of London, they love stories like this. That is why it was in every newspaper across the capital. But was it just a story? I mean, this is exactly the scene that can be seen today at your museum, isn't it? Oui. This special exhibit was modeled on that very illustration. For a while afterwards, the contents of that article were reproduced in every newspaper imaginable. Madam, might I say something? Please, go ahead. Go ahead, mademoiselle. When something is described as a rumor, it doesn't necessarily mean it's entirely made up. I believe that often, rumors contain elements of the truth. Ah, I see that people from the East can be just as astute as the people of Europe. Can we be sure, for instance, that the professor's execution was successful? It is not possible for the dead to come back to life. Sorry? 10 years ago, I was there in the Lowgate Cemetery. After the criminal known as the Professor was killed by hanging, I took a wax impression of his visage from the corpse just before it was interred. So I can assure you, the man was dead. I see. It would certainly appear that the condemned man suffered the intended fate. Is that true of every waxwork in your museum, then? It is, assuming the subject is dead, of course. Live subjects have to cooperate in a similar way. I have letters from imprisoned criminals all the time, you know. What sort of letters? When my time comes, please make a waxwork of me. Komika. I don't know. Komika? I don't know. No! My museum is famous, Manja. Manjo. To be made into a waxwork is an honor. Honor. For some criminals, a symbol of status, even. Because nothing says hardened criminal better than wax. And it is thanks to one killer in particular that my museum has gained such popularity in London. I refer to the star of the special exhibit, of course, the Professor, whose form you claim to have captured by taking an impression from the actual corpse. There are no exceptions to the principles of Taspez. I just feel like I have to keep apologizing. Surely that's illegal, isn't it? It would seem the proprietress of this repository of novelties was blinded by monetary greed. It had nothing to do with money. The man is part of London's criminal history. That is why I had to sculpt him, to record this history. It is the raison d'etre of the Taspez Museum. But if the man was convicted in a closed court and sent for immediate execution, then surely nobody but the members of the judiciary present know the killer's true identity. I assure you, behind that mask is hidden the true face of the Professor. Do you realize what you're saying? The Professor's identity is a national secret. I understand. And now that the truth about the special exhibit has been revealed, it must perhaps close. Of course it will. As will your entire museum if you don't tread very carefully, madame. That could be another interesting chapter in the history of my family, I think. Don't you? So 10 years ago, on the night of the... So 10 years ago, on the night of the Professor's execution, you took a wax impression of his face from the corpse. Oui, exactement. I hid myself until he gave me the signal. Until he gave me a signal. I was there for a very long time that night. Hold it! You were there longer than you expected to be? I had some difficulties in capturing the subject's form correctly. As I removed the mask, the mouth of the cadaver fell open, and I had some problems with the chin. Dare I ask? The man had been dead for a short while already, you see. His muscles were relaxing, and consequently his chin would not align itself correctly. Oh dear, what a horrible thought. Under normal circumstances, I would have an assistant with me. However, that night I was alone, and as a consequence, I missed my preferred window of time. What do you mean? When I take the impression of the visage of a cadaver, I always wait until 3 hours after death. Why 3 hours? Is that amount of time significant? It is because of rigor mortis. A rigor mortis? It's a name given to a phenomenon that occurs in recently deceased bodies. As a rule, 3 hours post-death, the muscles in the body begin to stiffen. By approximately 10 hours post-death, the entire body is completely rigid and inflexible. And then, from that point on, the muscles slowly start to revert to their relaxed state. The effect is often used to estimate the time of death when a body is discovered. Well, that was an education, if a slightly scary one. As the mademoiselle says, rigor mortis commences 3 hours after death, and it starts in the jaw. I see. So that's why you wait. Before that time, the mouth falls open, and it is very difficult to do my work. It's getting hard for me to do my work with all this talk of corpses. Wonder about the information the course just heard from Madame Tuspells. The information about rigor mortis you just shared with us, would you mind including that in your formal testimony? I believe it could be significant, you see. Of course, I do not mind at all. I can't help feeling that after this latest topic, the atmosphere in the courtroom has become extremely grave. This is no time for jokes, Mr. Sato. That was actually a pretty good one. Madam, kindly amend your testimony as discussed. Bien, sir. Rigor mortis being the phenomenon you described whereby the corpse becomes stiff after death. I think you said that it starts at the jaw, about 3 hours post-death. Is that right? Oui, c'est ça. Of course, the exact duration depends a little on the season. I didn't realize a waxwork artisan would be so well versed in the subject. No, that is only elementary knowledge in the field of legal medicine. Well, I had no idea about it, but maybe I won't admit to my ignorance about forensic science. I could ask my father to give you a very simple primer if you like. I think corpses should be your domain. I'm not good with them. Oh dear. I'll do my very best. You say that dawn was approaching? What was the time of day then? Approximately. Well, I could not say. But when I left the cemetery with my utensils and wax, the morning light was becoming visible. The execution took place on 17th of June, which had the earliest sunrise of that year. Indeed it did. First light would have been at around 4:40 in the morning. That really is early. The fact is, I had very little time, so I finished my work in a half hour. It was necessary to complete the impression and bury the body before daybreak, of course. If somebody had discovered me there, it would have been a catastrophe, so I had to hurry. Is it me, or does Mr. Sholmes seem to be taking shape more quickly now, too? You certainly appear to go to extraordinary lengths for your work, madame. I wonder, what she's just said particularly significant? Madame, those details about how long it took you to complete the sculpture in the early sunrise, could you include them in your testimony? I believe they may be significant. Of course, if you would like me to. You're quite right, Mesonato. It is intriguing. A sunrise at 4 in the morning would be absolutely unimaginable at home, wouldn't it? It's not quite what I meant by significant. Kindly amend your formal testimony then, madame. With pleasure, my lord. I hurried to finish my work in the hour. Did you have reason to believe you might be discovered once the sun came up or something? I had paid the gravedigger money to keep my little secret, of course. But with the morning light, I knew that the warden from the prison would commence his patrol of the area. Couldn't you just have paid off the warden too then? Couldn't you just have paid off the warden too then? I had already paid the gravedigger, as I said. You cannot buy the silence of everyone, or the secret no longer a secret, eh? The sunrise was at 4:40 a.m. that day, which means that it would have been around 4 when you began your sculpting work. Oui, that must be correct. That would be when the gravedigger gave me the signal to come out of hiding. So, that's all I have to go on. What's your feeling, Mr. Harder? For some reason, Dr. Scythe went along with Drebber's plan. Now, if that's really true, then the professor is the only other thing we know of that links the pair of them. So I feel sure that Waxwork must be a clue to this mystery somehow. In that case, we must use this cross-examination to uncover exactly what it means. Otherwise, the jurors are sure to revert their leanings, and the trial will be over. I agree. But, interestingly, uncovering what the professor has to do with all this means more to Lord Van Zeeks than anyone. That's the impression I'm getting, anyway. Yes, as do I. After all, he has a profound connection to the professor as well. I think... because he's got a helmet on. So how could you get his face?
Objection!
Oh. Just, I'm surprised that wasn't correct, but... Oops. My bad. Sorry, everyone. So, obviously, it's gonna be, you know... something with these last two, I guess. Oops, no! Ah, I did it again! I did it again. Ah! Oh, apologies. Do we have anything that says anything about, like, rigor mortis or whatever? Anything on her Waxworks? Nope. I thought maybe, like, the fact that he had a camera might have... Oh, wait, no, sorry. Tripper was the witness, not the gravedigger. Sorry. Damn it. I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. Nope. Thank you, Council, that will do. But, my lord, wait! The defense is still in the process of establishing its argument. No further analysis is necessary, I feel. As such, I shall be requesting the final decisions of the members of the jury. It has been an honor to serve, my lord. We know exactly what we think
Guilty.
now.
Guilty. Guilty. Guilty.
Guilty!
Guilty.
Mr. Albert Hamraid, in accordance with the findings of this court, I pronounce you guilty. I applaud the judges for doing their civic duty and finding a swift resolution to this matter. That is all. Court is adjourned. Yep. I'm really not sure. I'm gonna look this one up. I'm really stumped here. Oh, oh, it looks like I might have to... I have to do all this again, I guess. Or oops. No. I meant load. Okay, there we go. Now we don't have to do it all again. Alright, let's look this up. Radius of turn 2. Madam tough spells. Testimony. Oh no, it looks like there's actually 2 more chapters after this. So, even though they keep saying, oh, this is the final battle, like, no. It's not, actually. There's 2 more chapters. Then oops. Madam Tuspels, I have here an autopsy report that was filed 10 years ago now. It confirms the death of the professor following his execution at the gallows. And is that a problem? I believe it is, because your testimony and a particular detail in the report completely contradict one another. They do. Let me take a look at that. That's by hanging. I'm just not sure what... I didn't see a contradiction there, so... What? Are you going to explain yourself, my Nipponese friend? According to her testimony, Madame Tuspels was creating her wax impression just before dawn. At that time, rigor mortis had not yet set in. Oh, was it... Oh, at midnight! Oh... Sorry, everyone. That should have been obvious. And at that time, rigor mortis had not yet set in. Am I correct so far, madame? You are, yes. As I said, the stiffening of the jaw is the first sign of rigor mortis, 2 to 3 hours after death. But the man's chin was limp, so he cannot have been dead for a long time. But on the other hand, if you look at Dr. Scythe's report, it quite clearly states the following. Death by hanging confirmed at midnight, 17th of June. No. If the professor indeed died at midnight that day, then by the time you were sculpting his face, rigor mortis would already have set in. Oui, yes, you are right. The chin would have been completely stiff. In other words, this report is wrong.
Objection!
No coroner makes mistakes when recording the time of death. The very idea is absurd. In that case, there's only one possible conclusion. The execution didn't actually take place at the stated time. Impossible! Order, order! Counsel, this is beyond folly. Not only do you indict the author of the report, Dr. Scythe, you also implicate members of staff at Berkeley Prison where the execution took place. Boy, heck. Extraordinary.
Not in my day.
My learned friend appears to have overlooked one very crucial fact. What fact? The professor died that night, without question. He did. Of course he did. I moved the man's limp jaw with my own hands. Yes, the professor died that night. But what if he didn't die at the gallows? Didn't die? Are you insane? What exactly are you suggesting did happen in that case? Did happen in that case. It's almost impossible to believe, but it would explain the link. between Dr. Scythe, the professor, and that one other person of interest. I have evidence that will explain exactly what I'm suggesting that night. Suggesting happened that night. Did I say suggesting that night? I meant suggesting happened that night. Counsel, please present the evidence at once. The evidence that allegedly explains what really happened on the night of the professor's execution.
Take that!
What happened that night is written very plainly in this newspaper article. Executed criminal returns in the dead of night at local cemetery. You're suggesting it was a corpse coming back from the dead now. Well, if this article is to be believed, yes. The professor, assumed dead following his execution, emerged from his grave and was killed again.
Objection!
Don't be a fool, it's simply a rumor published by the Gutter Press. Can you be certain of that? Are you serious? The point is, as the article says, there was a witness to what happened. My word, yes, indeed. Marie, the young man who stole into the cemetery by chance that night. Of course there was a witness, the story didn't write itself, but obviously the man made it all up. And in any case, this was 10 years ago now. There would surely be no hope of finding him. On the contrary, my lord, we all know this witness well. What? Are you suggesting, counsel, that you have identified the person in question? That you know who claims to have seen these utterly incredible events take place? Yes, my lord. In fact, you could say that he's right here before my very eyes. You will substantiate your latest claim now then, counsel. Who is the alleged witness of this staggering scene from the cemetery 10 years ago?
Take that!
The man in question is Mr. Enoch Drebber. Drebber? The previous witness? A special exhibit in the House of Horrors at Madame Tussbell's Museum of Waxwork recreates that decade-old scene in great detail. The condemned criminal emerging from the grave, and beside the tomb, a young man with a lantern stumbling upon the terrifying sight. And that young man is a 10-year younger Mr. Enoch Drebber. Order! Surely not, counsel. Drebber was there, in Lowgate Cemetery. What is all this talk about Mr. Drebber? Is the name significant? Of course, Madame Tussbells doesn't know, does she? Yes, it's extremely significant, Madame. To your situation as well, in fact. What situation? The theft of the Professor Waxwork from your museum some days ago was perpetrated by the very same man. No, but that would mean... Madame Tussbells, it would appear you know the name Enoch Drebber. Oui, yes, I know it, but from long ago in the past. What? Oh my! Good gracious! Explain yourself. Tell us everything you know. Yes, yes, of course. The story of the young man and the terrible sight he witnessed in the cemetery 10 years ago was published in every single newspaper in London and throughout Great Britain. However, in all of the articles, the witness was simply described as a certain young man. No details were published about his identity. His name was never revealed. That is, apart from in one newspaper. The Daily Circus. It is the paper from which comes the article I have already shown the court. You're saying that his full name was only publicized in that article? Goodness me, yes, here it is. The university student who experienced this shocking event is Mr. Enoch Drebber, a disciple of science at the University of London and a resident of its student dorms. Unbelievable. When I read the article, I went to meet with the young man. His discovery of the condemned criminal coming back to life in the cemetery in the dead of night would make a perfect exhibit for my house of horrors, whether it was the truth or not. I see. So you went to meet Mr. Drebber in order to sculpt a waxwork of the man, did you? Exactamente. It was studying science at the University of London in those days. It was just a poor student. I paid him £5 to model for the waxwork. And since that time, he has been in a museum to recreate the scene of terror from the cemetery. From the time of cemetery. God, it's just awful. It's an awful, awful accent. It's not French. It's barely anything. I'm really doing my best, and it's not good. So 10 years ago, a young man appealed to the public about an extraordinary. Hold on, that was accidental. Accident moved on. 10 years ago, a young man appealed to the public about an extraordinary event he'd witnessed. A criminal who had been put to death, re-emerging from his grave in the middle of the night. But the public treated his claim as nothing more than a music anecdote that was soon forgotten. 10 years later, the same man steals a waxwork model of the executed criminal, ostensibly to use as a body double for the victim in the case we're discussing here today, even though the waxwork build is a poor match for the victim, and its face is obscured by a mask. So the question is, why would the man do such a thing? Which brings us to 3 days ago, when the birdcage crashed into the Crystal Tower. If the birdcage had in fact contained not the body of Mr. Asman, but that same waxwork, the coroner from Scotland Yard who investigated, Dr. Scythe, would have noticed immediately. And yet, she submitted this autopsy report for the victim, which the court has seen earlier. Why? Because the waxwork was that of the professor. Is that what you're saying? Dr. Scythe put her name to a document confirming the death of a condemned criminal who was still alive. A criminal whose apparent resurrection was witnessed by Mr. Drebber. But that misconduct was a deadly secret the coroner would do anything to protect, which is precisely why Mr. Drebber used that particular waxwork as the body double. Ah. My lord, this court must summon Dr. Scythe to the stand. The defense is determined to find out exactly how the coroner and Mr. Drebber are connected. But according to the missive I received this morning through the prosecutor's office, Dr. Scythe is unable to participate in these proceedings. Is that not the case? She told us so herself, didn't she? Lord Van Zieks won't be summoning me as a witness. Lord Strongheart has forbidden it. Lord Strongheart? The Pandora's box you were warned about is the Professor case. And please don't mistake please don't make the mistake of thinking you'll get any information about it out of me. Something happened on the night of the killer's execution 10 years ago, and surely nobody would want to get to the bottom of that more than Lord Van Zieks. The prosecution calls for the instructions in that missive to be scrapped. But Lord Van Zieks, the missive was issued from the Lord Chief Justice's office. The assigned prosecutor has the final say on policy in any particular trial. In other words, me. Yes. Let Enoch Drebber and Dr. Scythe both take the stand together. Order, order, order! Very well, I will uphold your request. Bailiff sent a subpoena with immediate effect addressed to Dr. Scythe of the Forensic Investigation Team. A woman is compelled to attend on Her Majesty's orders. Alright then, Enoch Drebber and Dr. Scythe. If they weren't colluding with one another, this crime could never have been committed. I'm just a stone's throw away. I can feel it. The truth behind all this is about to come out. Oh, Madame Tussbills is still up there as well. Thank you for your attendance at such short notice, Dr. Scythe. I'm disappointed in you, Lord Van Ziegs. You've completely betrayed the agreed policy of both Scotland Yard and the prosecutor's office. Betrayal is not in my nature as long as the truth isn't compromised. If it is, if there's even a hint of wrongdoing, then no matter whom it concerns or disgruntles, I will pursue the matter to the bitter end, as would any prosecutor worth his salt. Mr. Drebber, you took the victim's life by means of a machine that you can, oh, damn it. You took the victim's life by means of a machine that you constructed in your workshop. And Dr. Scythe, as the investigating coroner, you were the first on the scene to examine the victim's body. It is the belief of the defense that you collaborated with each other and were both complicit in this crime. And where's your evidence? At present, we have no definitive evidence, but we do have a very significant clue. What are you talking about? I'm talking, of course, about the waxwork. This model of the killer, known as the Professor, this model of the killer, known as the Professor, who was sentenced to death 10 years ago. You don't need to tell me. I witnessed the man's execution with my own eyes, and officially pronounced him dead. That remains to be seen. Is that so? According to newspaper reports from the time, on the night following his execution, the killer came back to life. Don't waste my time. And the sole witness to that mysterious event was you, Mr. Drebber, wasn't it? If what you saw in the graveyard that night 10 years ago wasn't some chilling fiction, but reality, it would make you privy to a very great secret of Dr. Scythe's. A secret so profound it could compel the coroner to agree to collaborate in your evil scheme, in fact. Mr. Drebber, tell the court. Tell everyone the truth of what you saw that night in Lowgate Cemetery. So he was the student who saw it. You can see the resemblance, actually, can't you? With the man in Madame Tussbills, I mean.
Surely he's not going to claim it's really what he saw, especially not after all these years. He was a research student at the University of London, was he? And a bit too clever for his own good, if you ask me.
Oh my, that's a hell of a rain. Wow, that's heavy. That's a heavy rain. Sorry, I just looked out the window and it was just like, oh my god. That's a real heavy rain. What an interesting twist. When at the time, not one person would take me seriously. Yet now here we are, 10 years later, and suddenly my story matters. And in a court of law, too. Very well then, if everyone so wishes. Let's be frank. I'll tell you the truth of what happened that night, for what it's worth. So, Mr. Drebber, your testimony, please, about the events of that night 10 years ago. You will tell the court exactly what you stumbled across in Lowgate Cemetery. Yes, of course, as you wish. reason I was in Lowgate Cemetery at all 10 years ago was for a spot of moonlighting, shall we say. Yes, the illustration in that newspaper article was based on what I witnessed that night. But thinking back now, I realized that I never actually saw the professor. Soon afterwards, I was visited by a young woman who sculpted a model of me from wax. Then I gave up on my dream of becoming a scientist, and it was all because of that newspaper article. Wait a minute. You're claiming you didn't actually see the professor now? Of course. You'd have to have a screw loose if you believed a corpse could come back from the dead. But, so you're saying this article is not worth the paper it's printed on? I think that would describe it perfectly, yes? If the details in the article aren't true, it nullifies your argument for why Mr. Drebber and Dr. Sight would have been working together. So he's discrediting himself to cripple my argument. Tell me, witness. You claim to have been in the cemetery on some auxiliary business. Can you elaborate? That's right. Grave robbing, to be precise. As you know, Lowgate Cemetery is at the rear of Barclay Prison. So among students at the university, it had a reputation for being haunted by the ghosts of condemned convicts. Grave robbing, you say? Yes, exhuming fresh corpses to sell is reasonably lucrative. Of course, I never laid a finger on any valuables buried with the dead. So, you were one of the so-called resurrectionists, a particularly unpleasant scourge on society. Actually, my fellows and I went by another name, the Repurposers. That is quite beyond the pale. You would invite divine retribution, sir. Yes, well, I think I suffered retribution enough. The Daily Circus eventually unearthed my name and put it in print. It caused me a great many headaches. In the end, I had to leave the university. That was the only paper with the bad grace to identify me unambiguously, I might add. I see. Out of interest, who drew the illustration for this article? Ah, yes, that was the reporter who exposed me. He sketched that right in front of me as I described the scene. Obviously, as time ticked on, I bitterly regretted what I'd done. Claiming to have seen something I never truly saw. Foolish, very foolish. Well, counsel for the defense, you may proceed to the cross-examination now. At once, my lord. Cemetery 10 years earlier.
Hold it!
By moonlighting, you mean grave robbing, do you? Surely you only need to look at the graveyard scene and my appearance to gauge the answer to that. Lantern spade. But who on earth would want to buy... But who on earth would want to buy a dead body? Any major hospital. A hospital? In order to better understand the human body, the study of anatomy is crucial to medical science. There isn't a hospital in the world that has enough specimens to work with. Though obviously they have openly expressed an interest in obtaining more by dubious means. As aspiring scientists, we young research students had no money to work with, as I'm sure you can imagine. So we made surreptitious arrangements with a hospital via some of our medical student acquaintances. We would never take anything of value from the graves. This was all for the furtherance of science, you see. That's what we all told ourselves every time we stole into the graveyard at night, spade in hand. You realize body snatching is a serious crime. If you were caught, you could expect the gravest of consequences. We students were caught between the hammer and the anvil. We needed funds for research. Professor Harebrained said exactly the same. I'm quite speechless at the apparent levity with which you have revealed this abhorrent behavior. Well, if you wanted to know why I was there at Lowgate Cemetery, that's the reason. But I never expected it to end the way it did. That I regret to this day.
Hold it!
A strange happening at Lowgate Cemetery, which you now deny. Not entirely. I ran to fetch the police at the time, you know. I was shaking like a leaf, but they didn't believe a word of it. In fact, I was very nearly arrested myself. So you went to the papers instead. I started big with the London news, but unsurprisingly they didn't want to know either. In the end, though, it was reporters from the gossip rags, the gutter press, that came to get my story, and it spread like the plague through the capital, as gossip-hungry Londoners lapped up the tale. The story was in every single paper at the time, with the exception of some broadsheets. And yet only 2 or 3 of them actually interviewed me personally. Most of the accounts turned out to be very interpretive ghost stories. What about the article in the Daily Circus? That particular journalist found me at my dormitory. I don't know how, but he discovered my name. So I recounted to him exactly what had happened that night. And from your description, he drew this illustration? Precisely. That's how I learned that the condemned man was the infamous professor. Because the reporter told me so. I had no idea myself, you see. Newspaper reporters are wont to snoop around in matters that don't concern them. So the scene portrayed in the illustration is accurate, then? Well...
Hold it!
What are you talking about? I think I explained already, didn't I? Lowgate Cemetery is at the rear of Barclay Prison. So it was renowned among us students at the university for being haunted by the ghosts of condemned convicts. For some absurd reason, I was scared of the graveyard at night, and as a result, only too willing to believe that nonsense about the dead coming back to life. But you said you actually saw it. I said what I'd seen in my mind's eye. After all, resurrection is impossible, isn't it? You'd have to be unhinged to think otherwise. Unless, of course, you have some evidence that proves I encountered the professor that night. I don't know. Is there any material evidence that could show he really did see the professor? If we have anything at all, Miss Nardo. I know, I need to present it against that irritatingly backtracking statement of his. The point is, that night was a pivotal moment in my life. I think I know what evidence to use, but let's, get through all this first. So, that young woman being Madame Tuspel's, of course. Precisely. I must say I didn't expect to run into her again like this 10 years later. As I've explained, I went by the name published in the article and oh my god, I found the man. Yes, the article in the Daily Circus, I think you said. I was a poor student with barely a penny to my name at the time. And the young lady put £5 in front of me. So you readily consented to having a waxwork of yourself made and gave permission for it to be put on display. I did. I should sell what little I had to sell, I concluded. Ah, oui. I remember now. I purchased something else from you that day, Nisika. Did you? I can't say I remember. What was it, madame? His camera. Ah. Oh, yes. I made a point of taking it with me whenever I made an excursion into any cemetery. You took a camera with you, sir? To what end? To record the details of the body I disinterred. But I had no intention of ever visiting a graveyard again after that night, so I sold it. I see. But I still have it, monsieur. It is a part of the special exhibit in my House of Horrors. I am very meticulous about such details. It is the Taspel's way. It would seem, then, that this is the very camera Mr. Drebber took with him to locate the cemetery on the night in question. Yes, interesting. Then I gave up on my dream of becoming a scientist. This article, you mean, published in the Daily Circus. This article, you mean, yeah. Yes, someone informed the dean that it was my name that appeared in the article, and carelessly let slip that night after night I was digging up graves. Hardly a model student, you might say. The university's reputation was execrably defiled, and I was expelled as a result. Mon Dieu, I had no idea. And having been run out of university, you found employment in a somewhat specialist trade. You combine your knowledge of science with knowledge of stage magic to create various experimental machines intended to demonstrate never-before-seen technology, and you use those deceptive machines to trick the government and private investors into giving you money. Professor Albert Harebrain was just your latest victim, wasn't he? Whatever are you talking about? I have no recollection of doing anything of the sort. What's Tripper up to? Why would he suddenly change his tune and recant his claim? I wonder if perhaps it's because his circumstances have changed now. What circumstances? Well, if he admits to having seen the professor emerging alive from his grave 10 years ago, it will expose a secret of Dr. Sai's past that she would desperately want to hide. Yes, of course. If Drebber and Dr. Sai are working together now, then if Drebber were to betray her, there would be no reason for her to continue to cooperate. In that case, there's only one way around it. I'll have to prove he really did see it. Prove he really did see the professor's corpse coming back from the dead as he originally claimed. Yes, Miss Nato, exactly. Is this the right one to press on? Or to... hold on. Yeah. Okay, this is the right one to present the evidence against. That last statement... Wait, what? Really? It is your task as well to explain it somehow. Does it go... No, yeah, Yes, that's right. Isn't it incredible to think that this is... Oh, here we go. Yes, that's right. Isn't it incredible to think this is the actual camera Mr. Drebber used that night? I certainly never imagined a piece of evidence would be on display in Madame Tuspel's. She's very keen on everything being as true to life as possible, though, isn't she? What a wonderful machine! You really Look, Miss Nato, what is it? On the bellows, that's right, looks like blood. Oh, so that's not the evidence that we need? I thought maybe it was just because I missed something here, but I guess it's really not. Well, that's unfortunate. Huh. It's not the camera. Oh, it's a newspaper. Okay. Sorry, Mr. Drebber, but I don't believe that. Don't believe what? Your latest claim. You did see the professor on that night 10 years ago. Oh dear. We seem to be at odds. But I was there, and you were not. I know what I didn't see. The illustration with this article was drawn based upon what you told the journalists that you witnessed. A figure emerging from a tomb, wearing an iron mask. Yes, when the killer was tried 10 years ago, it was decided in the closed court's ruling that the man would wear the mask to hide his identity. It wasn't to be removed even during his execution and subsequent burial. Not even the prison wardens were to see the man's face. But obviously the provision of this mask was not public knowledge. Oh, I see. So, Mr. Drebber, as you've just heard... a lowly student of the University of London certainly wouldn't have known about the condemned man's mask. So unless you'd actually seen the professor that night, it's inconceivable that the artist would have included the mask in the illustration. Order! Well, Mr. Drebber? It's a violent scene, isn't it? If you look closely. And as I've already been at pains to point out, I was utterly petrified. Which is why I had in my head that I'd seen such a blood-curdling sight. But afterwards I came to my senses and realized that I'd been mistaken. You're still saying you didn't see it? If you're stubbornly sticking to that story, witness, then amend your testimony to explain how exactly you think your eyes deceived you. Of course, only too happy to oblige. Can't believe he's still not going to concede the point. What I in fact witnessed was a fellow grave robber at work. A fellow grave robber? What are you talking about? Well, I wasn't the only one busy in the cemetery that night, you know. Other body snatchers were at work. Of course, when I saw one emerging from the hole he dug, my heart very nearly stopped. So that's the terrifying sight I actually saw, you see. You're claiming it was just another student on equally insalubrious business as yourself. Many of the medical students would wear metal masks to protect them from bacteria during dissections. Clearly, the fellow was using such a mask to protect his anonymity, wouldn't you say? There's more to the story, isn't there? The article goes on to say, in the next second, a gunshot rang out suddenly from behind. The bullet pierced the resurrected man's chest, whose breath then stilled once more. We might assume that the sexton discovered the miscreants at work, perhaps, and fired upon one of them. If a gravedigger had shot someone in the cemetery, I think it might have been rather big news, my lord. I could only assume it was an embellishment bolted on later by the reporter. Madam Tuspels, don't take it out on Mr. Sholmes. Well, pardon. I was lost in my thoughts. Would it be fair to say that Mr. Gerber's last remark was significant to you in some way? I thought it was a little strange, that is all. How Monsieur Drebber could claim this, claims this now. If you don't mind me saying, madame, what are you talking about? Well, when I met you 10 years ago at your university dormitory, you recounted to me about your adventures in the cemetery, no? Oh, wait, I started giving her the voice of, you know, including the gunshot. Stop. You might want to watch your tongue, you know.
Objection!
Have a care, Drebber. That's no way to speak to a lady. Grr. Please, Madame Tuspels, carry on. Of course. According to what Monsieur Drebber told me at the time, he did hear a gunshot from behind him, and the bullet hit the condemned man. I said nothing of the sort. No, you were very explicit about the details. About the mask that the figure was wearing. And the blood that spattered over you when he was shot. Enough! Shut up, woman! You're making all this up. That will do. Mr. Drebber. Yes. You refute the account just given by Madame Tuspels? I have no recollection of ever saying those things. Come on, do you really expect us to believe you? Control yourself, counsel. I will not permit baseless accusations in my courtroom. Right. Under the circumstances, I think it best that you supplement your testimony with a statement to clarify your position on this witness. Very well. There was no gunshot from behind me at all, nor any spattering blood. Yet Madame Tuspels has testified that you told her about both of those details. Not true. I said nothing of the sort. 10 years have passed without material evidence to the contrary. You have no grounds on which to question the witness's word. Ah! Tell me, Madame Tuspels. What exactly did Mr. Gerber say about the blood that apparently spattered on him? Hello, this is what he told me. All of a sudden, he heard a very loud gunshot from behind his back. The bullet hit the figure who was emerging from the tomb in the middle of his chest, in his heart. One dreadful sight after another. And since Monsieur Gerber was at the time facing towards the condemned man, the blood sprayed from the wound and spattered on his body. That is what he told me. So, not an experience you would ever forget, is it? Precisely, and I didn't forget it, because, as I've already said, it never happened in the first place. He's clearly lying. Only I had some evidence to prove it. We can't let him win, Miss Nardo. So we mustn't overlook a single detail, no matter how small. Now is when we use the camera. Mr. Drebber, do you remember this camera? Well, that is the camera from that fateful night. Yes, we borrowed it from the House of Horrors. It's the camera you took with you to the cemetery that night, Mr. Drebber. And is that supposed to be significant? This kind of camera is rarely seen in our homeland, so my colleague and I began to examine it closely. We noticed that the lens extends forward on the end of some bellows. Like this. What's that? There, just on the bellows. It looks like a dark red stain. Ah! That's right. It's a rather conspicuous mark here on the bellows, in fact. Good lord, are you suggesting? Yes, my lord, it would appear to be a spatter of blood. Something that could be confirmed with a simple chemical test. Isn't that right, Dr. Scythe? It would be difficult to determine if it was human blood, not the blood of an animal. But yes, to test whether or not it's blood at all is simple enough. I propose that Madame Tussel's testimony was correct, and that on the night in question 10 years ago, you spattered with blood from a gunshot wound. And that furthermore, you really did witness the condemned professor emerging from his tomb. There's simply no way you could have forgotten such a traumatic experience. In other words, the only explanation is that you're trying to hide the fact that you saw the professor that night. But why? Why would he want to do that? Well, not for his own gain, it would seem. Well, who's then? Who could benefit? Mr. Drebber is obviously lying in order to protect somebody. My goodness, he's shielding someone. Yes, my lord. And clearly, it's someone who doesn't want the truth about the professor coming back to life to be exposed. Well, counsel, who is it then? Who is this witness trying to protect by lying about what he saw that night? Obviously, Corporal Scythe. The obvious answer is Dr. Scythe. Scythe. What hell do you mean? Imagine if the convict who'd been sentenced to death was not, in fact, killed. Imagine if that was to come to light. What are you insinuating? And imagine if the convict in question was the country's most hated mass murderer. If it was the professor. That would be an unprecedented scandal. This is beyond a joke. Need I point out that the dead cannot come back to life? What you're suggesting would mean that the execution never actually happened. Yes, that's exactly what it would mean. Once a man is sent to the gallows, he hangs. No one could escape, not in Great Britain. But the fact is, there was a witness to the fact that the man did escape his hanging. If that really were true, counsel, the implications of misconduct would not stop at the supervising coroner. It would take the honor of the entire judiciary from the ground up. And it's exactly because of those monumental repercussions that Dr. Scythe would consent to any demand made of her by someone who threatened to expose the secret, even if that meant being complicit in a crime. You mean... I mean that Dr. Scythe wasn't collaborating in Mr. Drebber's wicked scheme. She was coerced into collaborating in order to protect her decade-old secret. She switched the dead body of Mr. Asmund with the Waxwork model and fabricated the autopsy report. Ah! Lord Van Deeks! Pray forgive my freshly filled hallowed chalice and whole raft of other discourtesies now. Goodness me! It's just the sort of tall-tale Londoners will enjoy, I grant you. An executed killer rising from the dead, a Scotland Yard cover-up, a conspiracy at the highest levels. So let me ask you one thing. What's that? If the condemned man really did emerge from his tomb that night only to be shot in the chest, who pulled the trigger and disposed of him forever? We're pretty much out of time, but let's find a good place to stop. Well, gee, I have no idea at the moment. We have too little information to work that out at present, I think. I couldn't agree more. The Old Bailey is no place for wild fantasies. Ugh. And have you considered this, my learned Nipponese friend? Considered what? Do you realize just what a dangerous endeavor it would be to coerce this woman into such criminal activity? It's tantamount to declaring war on the entire British police force and judiciary. What? Hard to imagine any sum of money being offered for research would warrant it. To rely on some staged deception when so much is at stake would be madness. Well, I suppose. And this was no petty crime either. The victim was murdered. A man who'd already invested money in the venture and would be instrumental in future profits too. Yes, I had no reason to kill Mr. Asmund at all. Or are you forgetting that his death results in me receiving not a single penny? The court is already aware of the contract between myself and the victim. No. There is a contract. That's very true. The motive for this case runs deep, though. I can feel it. Using threats to force the head of the forensic investigation team to cooperate is extreme, especially for a government grant you had no guarantee of receiving in the first place. If the research grant was the aim, taking Mr. Asmund's life would have made no sense anyway, which means Mr. Drebber's motive wasn't money at all. He was just trying to kill Mr. Asmund. But why? What was his motive then? Your time is up, my learned friend. I'd say you have one last chance before the jury lose their patience with the charade. Let's see if you can back up your heady proposal, shall we? How do you explain why this engineer would throw all caution to the wind and threaten his own country? At this point, I'm not prepared to listen to more of this outlandish conjecture without proof. So, counsel, present your evidence. exactly was Mr. Asmund Drebber? There's a connection that no one's seen yet, and I'm going to have to present 2 pieces of evidence to show what it is. Yes, my lord. The evidence that establishes a motive and explains why the witness wanted the victim dead is right here. Goodness, I have no idea. Establish the motive. Reaper's hat. It's the kingpins of the criminal underworld generally manage to escape conviction in Reaper's trials. This isn't the first time their henchmen have tried to attack Lord Van Ziek as a result. By the sound of it, makes you think if that's how the justice system works in London, then there must be dark forces at work. Every article on the front page is news about the Great Exhibition. Public experiments demonstrate brand new scientific ideas, cultural exhibits from around the globe. It's also positive and hopeful about the coming century. We must all go see it properly before too long. If indeed this piece of evidence reveals the motive... If, counsel? Yes. If it did, it would be great, I was thinking. Or hoping anyway. Well, wishing, really. Are you treating my courtroom like a fountain that grants wishes when you throw money into it? I knew I should have thrown more than a farthing in last time I was at the park. I don't think it has anything to do with your offerings to the gods, Mr. Heather. At this point, I'm not prepared to... Establishes a motive, establishes a motive. Ah, no. Motive, motive, motive. Motive, motive, motive. Mr. Drebber, I have here the contract you signed with Mr. Asmund. Yes, that's right. Very documented, in fact. That proves I had no reason to kill the man. No, I'm afraid not. As it turns out, this contract actually helps to establish the real motive for the murder you committed. It does? Well, I never. What are you talking about? Reach it again, you idiot. I'm not finished. In order to demonstrate what your motive really was, I need this contract and one other piece of evidence. What other evidence? Counsel, you will present your supplementary evidence without delay. The evidence which, when cross-referenced with the contract, establishes the motive for the deed. Okay, so let's take a hard look at this. Oh! It's this newspaper article, my lord. That was written 10 years ago, and every detail has been examined already. What could it possibly tell us? That dribble should never have been written. It's typical gutter-press nonsense. It means nothing. But there's something significant that this newspaper article and the contract have in common. Really? And it's that common link that shows very clearly why you were determined to kill Mr. Asmund. seems the defenders uncovered something the rest of us have missed. So, my learned friend, point out what these two pieces of evidence have in common. Where exactly is the link between this newspaper article and the contract? Right there. What these two pieces of evidence have in common is a signature. A signature! The signature on the illustration that accompanies a 10-year-old article and the signature on the contract belong to the same person. What? As the court has heard, this illustration was drawn 10 years ago by the newspaper reporter who found Mr. Trevor and interviewed him about his ordeal. If you look closely, the reporter's signature can be seen in the bottom right corner of the drawing. And if you look at the contract here, which was signed between the witness and the victim last year, you can clearly see Mr. Asman's signature at the bottom. Let me see now. Good lord, yes, they're identical. In short, the journalist who drew the illustration and wrote the article published about Mr. Trevor 10 years ago was the victim of this case, Mr. Odie Asman.
Objection.
Explain to the court why. Why would that constitute a motive for the witness to murder Asman? Well, if you think back, you'll remember that Mr. Trevor talked about that article in his testimony. Grave robbing, you say? Yes, exhuming fresh corpses to sell is reasonably lucrative. That is quite beyond that. You would invite divine retribution, sir. Yes, well, I think I suffered retribution enough. The Daily Circus eventually unearthed my name and put it in print. It caused me a great many headaches. In the end, I had to leave university. That was the only paper with a bad grade, so identified me unambiguously, I might add. Then I gave up on my dream of becoming a scientist, and it was all because of that newspaper article. At the time, you were a student of the University of London who dreamed of becoming a scientist. However, this single newspaper article changed your entire life. So Mr. Asman used to be a newspaper journalist, did he? He did, my lord. In fact, it's a widely held belief that Asman managed to position himself at the heart of his criminal network thanks to the many dubious connections he made during his time as reporter. So you had to give up on your dream and leave university. You lost everything. Eventually, you found yourself working in the field of science, but only in the shadows. And all because of that article, written by Mr. Asman. Enough! Stop this endless drivel about my life. And I mean, clearly we're like right in the middle of a huge amount of stuff, but this is the best place I can figure where to stop. 'Cause I'm very hungry. I want dinner, and if we keep going, we're just gonna keep going, and I have no idea how much is left. So, thank you so much to everyone who wasn't here. Thrifty, it was fantastic to have you here for as brief as you were here for, and I will see you all on Saturday. I think we're gonna play, for our new point-and-click game, we're gonna play Zack McCracken and the Alien Mindbenders. Or we might play more of the Sonic the Hedgehog point-and-click that I was doing Tuesday. I haven't decided yet. I'm not entirely sure yet. I do kind of want to get through that, and it's not very long from what I've heard, and then we can do a new thing on both of those days. So, I'm not sure. We'll see. But, yeah, thank you to everyone who wasn't here. Pretty amazing to see you here. And I'll see you all on Saturday. Bye-bye!